The name Town Branch refers to the body of water that currently runs under Lexington, on which Lexington was founded. Town Branch Bourbon is a part of the Alltech family of award-winning beer, spirits, brewing, and distillery operations. Let's go on the bourbon trail and make a stop at Town Branch Bourbon Distilleries.
Town Branch Bourbon, of course, is the first bourbon made in Lexington since 1969. It used to be the old Pepper Distillery used to make it, but it has a long legacy of bourbon making for a long time in this area, and it really fizzled out a lot after the old Pepper Distillery closed down. This gave us another opportunity to bring bourbon back into the Lexington area. We think it's a very nice fit. We think the name's most appropriate since it's the only waterway that goes through Lexington. In fact, it's a non-navigable waterway. So we thought it'd be most appropriate to bring this waterway and bring that into the name of our bourbon. President of our company, Pierce Lyons, he's a big advocate of brewing and distilling. It's one of his passions, and he's enjoyed doing that for many years. The opportunity came up in '99 to buy the Lexington Brewing Company. And so we started making beer in 2000, a pretty successful product with Kentucky Ale and Kentucky Bourbon Barrel Ale.
Now we had the brewery and a great beer. And then we thought, well, how do we make the next step? And then the marriage comes about. And I'd never made a bourbon before. I'd made Irish whiskey before. I'd made products going into Irish coffee. I'd made products similar to the Irish liqueurs. And incidentally, we're going to make one based on bourbon, like a Bailey's, and we've got to come up with a name. But I'd never made a bourbon. I'd been in all the bourbon distilleries, and so we made this bourbon. And now it's about 5 years old. And quite frankly, it's as good a bourbon as you'll ever get. I'm not sure quite where the law came from, but the law states if you're going to make bourbon, bourbon has to be 51% corn, but it also has to go into a brand new oak barrel. And it can never be reused, that barrel, not if you want to call it bourbon.
Keep ours right now is running a little over 5 years. We're really shooting to get that time period up to about the 5 to 8 years. That gives us our best, smoothest characteristic on our bourbon. 95% of all bourbon made in the United States is made in Kentucky. We really want that to be our brand. It's a very unique product. It's something that really originated and is a part of Kentucky. And Alltech really wants to be a part of that branding to make bourbon Kentucky's #1 product.
Two whiskeys. One whiskey is called Town Branch, and the other whiskey, bit of an ego, I guess, has a different name. And so we called the committee, the naming committee, and we said, well, we're going to have a whiskey, we're going to have it more like an Irish whiskey. And the committee sat and talked and considered. And then this committee of one said, why not call it Pierce Lyons? And of course I was the committee.
Then of course we got the Town Branch Rye, which we started in 2009, and we run that one about 2 weeks every quarter. We're running that material off, and that one there again pulls up some very nice warming allspices. Beautiful colors again come through on that product. That one there we run off at 100 proof, so it really picks up a nice flavor characteristics at that higher alcohol content. These are the basic ingredients for bourbon. Of course, you have malted barley and you got corn. We also have a little bit of rye goes in our bourbon mix, about 15%. What we don't show here is the yeast because it's a paste and it's liquid, but trust me, it is in there, and that does do our fermentation work for us. So these are the basic ingredients. If we're making a Pierce Lyons Reserve, it'd just be this, water and yeast. But with bourbon, we'll have the malted barley, the corn, the rye, and the yeast. we're part of the Bourbon Trail, and this is one of 2 locations that bring tourists into both metropolitan Louisville and Lexington. So we think this is a good tourism draw, bringing everybody into Lexington, and couldn't be any better being a quarter mile from Rupp Arena. In this facility here, of course, we'll ferment, we'll distill. We fill the barrels at this location also. You know, our barrels are sourced from local supplies here. We also will bottle at this facility.
Frankly, I think it's about the best bourbon out there. And that may be me talking as the creator of our whiskey, or it may be me talking as a total outsider, which I am, to bourbon, which I am, and saying objectively, this is one fine bourbon. So much so that if I'm placed in front, and I'm Irish, of a Jameson, or a malt whiskey from Scotland, I will take our Town Branch.